Tommy Rex, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now, here's your host.
Incarceration, America's rock, metal, and tattoo festival returns this summer with Limp Bizkit, Disturbed, You walk out like a woman in suffering, Bad Omens, plus Gojira, Papa Roach, A Day to Remember, Motionless in White, Ice Nine Kills, Cypress Hill, The Used, and so many more. Incarceration at the Ohio State Reformatory, July 17th to 19th. Passes on sale now at incarceration.com.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle, and just chatting it up with Nick from the band Omen Skye. What's going on, man? How you doing?
What's going on, Bill? I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good, man. Good. It's, we got some good weather here in the Cleveland area, and that don't happen often, so I try and take advantage of it whenever I can. See some blue skies.
Yeah, man. It's a beautiful day here in Baltimore City as well.
Nice. Probably the calm before the storm, I'm sure, for us.
Right.
But usually when I have guests on for the first time, I like to go back in their story. So do you remember originally what you wanted to be when you grew up?
It's funny you should ask. You're a Navy veteran, correct?
Yes, sir.
So my favorite movie growing up was Top Gun, and you can ask my mom this, and she would have the same response. I wanted to be like a naval aviator. And then my doctor said that I was probably going to be well over 6 foot and to maybe rethink that career because I might not fit in a cockpit. But one of my mom's best friends had a son. He flew an EA-6B Prowler, the ones that jam enemy like radio communications. And he helped me, and he, we were in the process of, trying to go like the Naval Academy route. And I ended up just kind of switching gears a bit, but I don't know. I've always been into music ever since I was a young kid. So, the naval aviator thing, that was kind of my mom's dream. My dad, he was the guy who got me into music. So I guess I'm going more the route that my dad chose, when I was a kid, exposing me to bands like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, stuff like that. So, one of the parents is super happy.
Yeah, I bet. And then, it's funny you mentioned that too, because like Top Gun was one of my favorites, and I actually got to work on F-14s when I first went in. So I was on a flight deck working on an aircraft carrier on F-14s. Never got to fly in one, but I was the grease monkey around it. And then
I went to the danger zone.
Oh yeah. It's funny because in Maverick, when they show show his locker in the sequel, they show like patches of a lot of F-14 squadrons, and my squadron's patches on there. It's the skull and crossbones from the Jolly Rogers. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Next time I watch Maverick, I'll definitely keep an eye out. I thought that was a great sequel, by the way.
Yeah, it was amazing, man. It was amazing. My daughters took me to see it on Father's Day when it came out, and it brought back a lot of memories. It was cool to experience that with them. And when we went on vacation, I took them to the base that I used to be stationed at, and we, they got to see how I lived. And of course, we've moved along since F-14s quite a bit, right. But they had an old like model of one, and we took a picture in front of it and stuff. But anyway, this is your interview, so
sure. Yeah.
So Dad gets you into Zeppelin and Sabbath and stuff. When was it that you started kind of like getting involved with some of your own music?
So, I was kind of a band nerd growing up. That was my extracurricular. I played violin in 3rd grade. That didn't stick, which is funny because then I got into playing guitar later, which is strings instrument. From 4th grade to the beginning of high school, I played alto saxophone. That's how I learned to read music and really appreciate it. More of a jazz and classical background. And then once I got to high school, I took those bands that my dad showed me. And then I got into heavier music. Bands that were pretty big around my high school years that really influenced me were bands like Breaking Benjamin, Chevelle. I'm going to see them together in September, right before my birthday, which is going to be an awesome show. And that's when I picked up a guitar for the first time. And even though it was my dad who inspired me, it's my mother who bought me my first guitar. She bought a drum set for the house, and I started to dabble in both. I have been a guitar player my whole life. So now being a vocalist is a bit strange for me. I never thought I'd be on stage with a microphone instead of a guitar. But my first band in high school, I joined. They had written a few songs. They were, more like alternative inspired. Their name when I joined was called Apocalypse in a Day, and I joined as the rhythm guitar. And then the vocalist left to do his own thing. The other guitarist, Justin, ended up leaving, and then we changed the name to Sierra Slade. It was meant to be like metaphorical of like a Sierra is like a mountain range, and to slay is like to overcome obstacles. It's a bit of a thinker, but also like, I don't know, Sierra being a woman's name, it was kind of indicative of a band like Chelsea Grin, where it's like a name and then just some clever word to follow behind it. And also Sierra Slade was alliterative, which I thought was really cool. But we ended up writing a lot of music that was inspired by like Slipknot, Avenged Sevenfold, Breaking Benjamin. And then we also threw some covers in there because, younger audiences, they want to hear a few songs that they recognize thrown into the mix. And, our drummer, Ryan Corville, his dad was in a big band out of, the Baltimore, DC area in the 80s. They were called Heat, and he taught Ryan to play the drums. And to this day, he's one of the best drummers I've ever had the pleasure of playing with and performing with. And me and him wrote all the music, and then Eric joined later. So that was our band during the high school and early college years. And then Ryan ended up going to the University of Virginia. He lives now in Charleston. So we abandoned that project, years ago. And I've still been dabbling in music since then. All my buddies, they still play. A lot of them are in a cover band project now called Wet Papa, which there's a whole story behind that band name, but a lot of them are dads now. And, they try to get me to come over and play with them. But, Omen Skye is now, our schedule's filling up, man. We have a lot going on, and, this is our baby. This is our main project now. And we're very happy to be where we're at.
Nice. Now tell me when you had to make the transition to vocals from playing guitar.
So our drummer, Dylan, I met him. We were at a concert here at our favorite Baltimore venue, Baltimore Sound Stage. We were going to see Born of Osiris and Veil of Maya. And he and I both were, we were solo. He came by himself. I came by myself. Didn't know anybody there. So we kind of just naturally drifted towards one another. And, we became friends that very first night, and him and I were friends for about a year until he started divulging, like, he used to be in this band, Silent on Fifth Street, that, they're still together. They still perform, and they got pretty big back in the day. And he's been itching to start a new group. And his buddy, Josh, had just recently moved back to Maryland from Alaska. He spent 10 years in Alaska, doing his thing up there. And he's been writing music and kind of putting stuff in the on-deck circle, music-wise in his mind. And so I told him that I played guitar, and he said that Josh was going to be the main guitarist, and I dabbled in drums. Dylan was a drummer. And he's like, what we really need is a vocalist. And I said, well, I've never really tried metal vocals, screaming, false chords, fry screams, that sort of thing, anywhere other than in the comfort of my own car. But I had been really itching to get on, in a new project, music-wise. So I told them to give me 2 weeks, and I practiced on YouTube. I actually have some video footage that I may post one day, like how it started and where we are now, it's pretty rough. It's not very good. And I practiced the song Laid to Rest by Lamb of God. They're one of my favorite heavy bands. You know, they're not from far away, right there in Richmond, Virginia. And I went over, and it was the two of them. And then at the time, our bass player, Alan, and I auditioned with Laid to Rest. And it was just good enough that they offered me the job. And so that was just over 3 years ago.
Nice. Now getting back to Omen Skye, tell me about, that coming together and the inspiration behind the name.
So Josh had written 2 songs, which they sent to me very early on, and I was blown away. I mean, they were just demos, but they sounded incredibly professional. I wanted to be a part of this project, and I met Josh for the first time. He is, he's a great guitarist, and he's incredibly, intelligent when it comes to coming up with the names, titles for things, and what inspires him. Has a bit of a poetic soul, I'd say. And he came up with the name Omen Skye. It actually is derived from Sleep Token lyrics. I can't remember which song it is, forgive me, but at one point, Vessel uses the term an omen in your skies, referring to his presence in another person's life, like this ominous presence that in the midst of their life. And he really liked that, and it spoke to him. And I have a whole list in my notes section from three and a half years ago when we were trying to come up with a name, and nothing sounded quite right for the sound that we were going for. And he pitched that name to us, and all of us immediately were like, that's it. We love it. And funny enough, there's a game somewhere out there. It's called Valorant or Valorant. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but there are 2 characters, one named Omen and one named Skye, spelled the same way, Skye. And people ask us all the time if that was the inspiration for the name. And it wasn't. I don't know what that game is. Maybe someday I'll play it, but I think that's kind of funny that it turned out that way. Excuse me.
Yeah. And then when you started, like you were talking about, some of the other bands you were playing with in Baltimore, but what was like the music scene like when you were coming up out there?
Oh man, I think Baltimore has a fantastic music scene. I met some gentlemen 2 weeks ago at a show, and they were saying they were from your area, and they were talking about the Midwest and how the Midwest caters to metal and heavy music, and it absolutely does. I've heard the same thing about Massachusetts. I've gone to a lot of shows in other states and stuff, but I mean, Baltimore, we have a fantastic scene. The venue that I mentioned earlier, Baltimore Sound Stage, it's family owned, and they actually just bought out the second largest club venue in the area that used to be owned by, I think it was Live Nation. It was the Rams Head Group. It was Rams Head Live. They bought it from them, and now it's called Nevermore Hall, which is a callback to Edgar Allan Poe, The Raven, Nevermore, Nevermore. And now, a Baltimore family owns 2 of our premier club venues. They throw the best shows. We have such a tight-knit group. We actually have like a group chat. I'm not personally in it because, I don't know, I feel like it would be kind of overload with so many things going on. I know Dylan, our drummer, is an active participant in it, but it's over 100 members of just our scene here in Baltimore talking about new music, talking about what shows are on the horizon, talking about locals, and trying to promote local shows, sell tickets. The atmosphere and the culture here behind heavy music in Baltimore, I think, is really, really special, and we're very happy, very lucky, and honored to be a part of it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm friends with the guys in Dog Fashion Disco from down that way, and Cleveland's become like a second home for them. They always like coming up here and playing. They get a good following. They originally kind of connected with the guys from Mushroom Head and used to swap shows with them all the time. And then, so I was going through your some of your music, and going back a little bit. I was really enjoying Dissension.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind that song.
That's actually an interesting one. We'll probably end up re-recording it because it gets overlooked a lot with that really long intro. But the reason we did that is because I'm a Baltimore native. native. I live here in the city. I remember exactly where I was during the riots in 2015, and that's what the intro to that song is about. It has, sound bites from a lot of our local elected officials at that time, and just the chaos and uncertainty that that surrounded that time in Baltimore history, Maryland history, and it was really something to see. And I feel like there's a strong parallel between what happened then and kind of like the divisive world that we see now. And there's always been these themes, but I feel like now more than ever, at least in my lifetime, seeing people kind of draw a line in the sand and say, well, what side are you on? And some of the lyrics in that song talk about hate trying to divide groups of people, and we're never the type of guys, the type of band that's ever trying to pick sides. We're just trying to tell a story and create a piece of art so that if it would be amazing if people listen to it 5 years from now, just as a little piece of like, this is what these guys experienced, this is through their unique lens, and to tell a story and a testament of what happened at that time. And it's a heavy song and people love banging their head to it, and I really wish that they would take the time to really understand the story and where that song comes from. And that hate, I don't think, is the answer. Music is something that we love to do because it brings people together. It brought our band together. We didn't know each other. Dylan and I had met a year before, but all the guys that are in the band now, none of us knew each other before this project, and we're a very diverse group of individuals, and music brought us together, and we wanted to do the same for our fan base and just for music culture at large. So
nice. Now, and then I was checking out your guys' YouTube channel and watching the video for the song Mirage.
yes.
You want to, that was very well done. I really like that. You want to tell a little bit about the story behind, the inspiration behind the song, but also how it correlates to the video?
Sure. So I'm going to try my best here. I'm going to be straight up. Mirage was written almost solely by our guitarist, Josh. The lyrics, the composition, that song was really his baby. The story it's basically a story of unrequited love, but it could, translate to many different areas of your life where you see something and you really believe that this is for you. This is something that you're about to pour your heart and all of your intention into, and it just turns out that it wasn't what you were led to believe that it was, whether it's a story of a man and a woman, or something, it could be some kind of parental figure in your life, somebody that you looked up to, and it just turns out that they weren't always the person that you thought that they were. And it's a little bit soul crushing. And funny enough, the set of that video is our other guitarist, Brian Balgus, our lead guitar player. That was his home. And a day or two after that music video was filmed, the house was sold. So if you listen to the lyrics of Mirage and, this person, this thing that you love, watching it kind of disappear as if it were never real, that house was sold 2 days after because of he had gone through a divorce at that time. And I felt that, he's the one who had the idea to use his home for the music video, and it just worked out thematically so perfect. And the average person, unless they listen to our interview or something or ask, they would never know that the setting of that film, the music video rather, had so much to do with the content, the lyrics, and the inspiration behind that song.
Nice. Now, I was, want to talk about your latest single too, "Cry the White Lie." I'm somebody that's in recovery, and there's been a lot of lies that I still continue to tell myself, over the years. That's actually why I was running behind to jump on this. I just got off a meeting and stuff.
Yes.
But
Good for you, Bill.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about the inspiration or the message in that one.
Congratulations, first and foremost. Actually, you just saying that gave me chills. I'm a few weeks away from celebrating 4 years clean off drugs and alcohol. Our drummer Dylan celebrated 4 years earlier this year. Me and him, I said the band's been together for 3 years, right? So when we originally met each other, we were not in a good place. He was, him and I had just met. We were taking trips up to the bar, getting as many drinks as possible, kind of, lost in that. And I feel like a lot of people struggle with that. And that's amazing that that song specifically spoke to you in that way, because I feel like it can be interpreted in many different ways. And I hope you continue to listen to us, because we have a song in the On Deck circle. It won't be our next release, but 2 releases from now that deal specifically with overcoming adversity and these things that arise in your life and having the power to overcome them. But yes, so Cry the White Lie was kind of my brainchild. I wrote the verse lyrics. Any screaming lyrics that are in that song were me. Josh wrote the choruses, the beautiful melodic singing that you typically hear in any of our songs. He writes that, and I write the verses, the heavier stuff. Not always, like Mirage was all Josh, but it's so amazing that we do that, because it's almost like 2 storytellers trying to tell different variations of the same story. So, it might be the same storybook, but we're on 2 different chapters and 2 different pages, or it's like, 2 protagonists. There was a game I used to love playing when I was a kid from the Final Fantasy series. It was Final Fantasy VIII, and the narrative was told from the point of view of 2 different protagonists. And I feel like Josh and I get to do that in our music. So I may be talking about one thing in a certain vein, and then he comes in and it's in and around the same theme, but he touches on it in a different way. And I feel like that's something very special about our music. Now, when I came up with the idea for just the idea of Cry the White Lie, like what does that mean? And we always make the joke, like that soundbite from I think it's Blades of Glory, like nobody knows what it means, but it's provocative. So I had the name for either a song or band name years ago called Crucify the Lie. And I always thought that was like such a cool idea. It just sounded cool in my mind. Josh wrote the music, and that heavy, alternate picking part, the da, 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 da. I was like, how can I fit those words into that section of music? And I was like, Crucify the Lie just doesn't sound right. So then I came up with Cry the White Lie. It was syncopated to the music. And I was like, all right, that sounds cool, but what does it mean? And then I started to develop the idea that, like you said, whether it's somebody in recovery, whether it's somebody like trying to navigate today's political climate, whether it's people that struggle with things like diet or their boss or relationships, we enter these things day in, day out, and we're telling ourselves these little white lies to just kind of get through our day. And it's a song about confronting that fact and realizing that this little voice in our head that's like, telling us these little white lies to just kind of get through life, sometimes it's best to confront that and to see the world for what it really is.
Yeah, nice, man. Now I was checking out that music video as well. It's pretty intense and like subliminal in there, I guess. But talk about like who put that together and what you guys were going for with that one.
So our bass player Dom, can't say enough good things about Dom. I mean, he used to be in a band years ago called Louder Than Quiet, and they got pretty big. They recorded some songs with some pretty big artists, and they've largely dissolved. Dom is more than just a bass player. When you think of the bass player, you think of the guy that lays down the groove and kind of hangs in the back. He writes songs. He wrote the song Signs. I don't know if you have gotten the chance to listen to that one. That's far and away, it was our original like big song. It's a sing-along. It touches on things like depression and suicide, some pretty heavy themes. He's the mastermind behind that. So, and he's also our tech guy. He got us all wireless. We all use in-ears. We have like a very expensive DI rig that he's the one who put that together. So he brought us into the digital age, and he has a lot of great creative ideas. So the Cry the White Lie lyric video was his idea. Him and I kind of threw around some ideas, and it was ultimately him that came together with, the final cut. And we wanted to be as ambiguous as possible. I listened to your interview with Andrew Deneve. He was fantastic. I feel like, he kind of brought this to light in a very unique way, and can't say enough good things about that guy. But in art, in music, you don't want to just tell a story that's so plain that the listener knows 100%, like, this is the story, this is their intention. I like to leave art up to interpretation. So with the thematic elements of that lyric video specifically, we wanted to leave it a little bit ambiguous for people to kind of draw their own conclusions. Like, you yourself, the imagery in that lyric video, I don't think, necessarily alludes to a person who's been able to get through a substance abuse problem. I don't think it necessarily has to do with anything in today's political climate, but in seeing these images, it might spark an internal conversation for the listener. And that's what we really hope to invoke in our audience, is for us to hear a song and to draw their own conclusions and to have it relate to their life in some way. We don't want every song to be, a central theme that everybody knows the subject matter, just, on the nose. We don't want to be so on the nose. We want it to be a little more of a think piece, while still being heavy, while still getting people moving. And I think that Cry the White Lie really does that in a fantastic way. It's heavy. There's great lead elements that Brian throws down. It's very dynamic in the fact that the beginning hits really hard. Then we have this kind of beautiful lull with these the ambient singing and chanting that Josh does in the background. So I feel like we really hit the nail on the head with that one, while still letting people come up with their own conclusions about what Cry the White Lie really means.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, man. It's one of those that you kind of gotta like watch back because you feel like you missed something, like
that's awesome.
Like there's some like Easter eggs or something in there, but maybe I'm overthinking it because I am an addict after all,
Right, right.
But you said you got a couple other tracks in the batter's box. Is there an album like on the way? So
we recently got picked up by management. We are now clients of Core Collective Talent Agency, and it's hard to say where it's hard to say where those guys are based at.
Fight from Within.
100%, man. Love that guy. Just got off a call with him around this time yesterday, I guess. He just got off tour. He's been through a lot. So if you know that guy, check in with him, man. They had issues with the tour vehicle and a lot of different stuff. But he's a fantastic dude.
I'll hit him up, man. He's a good dude.
You absolutely should. He's done so much for us, including getting us in touch with someone like you in order to get our name out there a bit and to talk about ourselves and what our music means to us. But yeah, him and Katie, they've given us a lot of great opportunities lately, but they've instilled in us how the music industry works in 2026, right? You and I mean, we grew up in a time where a band put together an album that could have been, I don't know, anywhere from like 6 songs or less if it's a more progressive metal band to like 10, 12, maybe more. And then that album came out. You went to the record store, you went to record and tape traders, whatever. You picked up that album and then you listened to it with your buddies, and that was it. And that's all the music that band might release for a year, maybe even 2. But in 2026, with streaming and how things work, they've instilled in us that it's better to just release singles about every 6 to 8 weeks. This is the formula now. So we had enough songs for an album. Our Mortals EP came out in 2024. That was 5 tracks. This album that we were originally going to put together, I believe it was something like 11 or 12 tracks. So we realized that that's probably not best for us. So we're just going to do one at a time and just keep spacing them out. These first 5 tracks, and then we're going to redo Dissension for it to get more plays. It's too good of a song for it to get passed by because of that really long intro. So we plan on re-recording that one. And so with Dissension included, it's going to be a 6-song EP. So starting with Mirage, Cry the White Lie, and our next song, I guess it's safe to talk about it, The Guys Wouldn't Mind. And then it gives us, a kind of interesting pivot here in the interview, because I feel like Mirage is, it's largely about like personal relationships. You got Cry the White Lie, which is like, an internal battle with oneself and coming to terms with this. And the next song, Further, is another brainchild of Josh. That one it's almost like cosmic horror. And I know you're a big fan of the horror genre. I heard a lot of the John Carpenter stuff from a previous interview. And this song is more about like a person having a conversation with like an entity that promises them like omnipotence. They'll know every secret of the universe, but then they become a slave to this entity. And the song is called Further, and it's heavy. It's it really gets the people moving. Our only fans that may have heard it so far are the ones that have been to a few of our recent shows, because it hits so hard that it's become our opening song. So that will be next, and that will be the third song for the EP. Then we have 2 more releases that should be July and August, and then that Dissension re-release should be around September. And then you have your 6-song EP right there that is titled The Thoughts That Haunt Us. And the thumbnail that you see on Spotify and Apple Music of the man in chains with our logo in the background with the snake, that's the album artwork that was designed for us by our artist. So those will be the songs. I don't want to give too much away, but Further, that next song, it's a bit of a, as far as what most of our songs are about, it's a bit of a hard right turn, but we feel like, sound wise, it fits very well. And we've been sitting on this material for quite a long time. So we hand selected our favorite 5 songs plus Dissension to create this EP that will be called The Thoughts That Haunt Us, because these are all themes that we've struggled with at some point in our lives, that keep us up at night, that kind of are a bit haunting in the back of our minds. And we're very excited to get it out there to our fan base. And also with Mikey backing us up now and Core Collective, I mean, they're getting us out to a much wider audience. And this is some of our best material. And we now have a lot more eyes and ears on our music. So it couldn't have come at a better time.
Nice, man. I love the name of that, The Thoughts That Haunt Us. And, kind of when you're talking about Further, I'm already interpreting in my own head, kind of like where we are with AI and technology and where it's headed, like the hive mind mentality that we kind of went through during the lockdown, where it's like everybody's just like, screaming reciting the same stuff over and over. And it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but that's
dude, I love
kind of what I got from it.
Yes, no. I just wanted to be known, The Thoughts That Haunt Us, that was actually Brian, our lead guitarist. He was the one who came up with that name. We had been throwing some things around. We kind of had the album artwork in processing, and this man just kind of laying there in chains, and then he came up with that name, like The Thoughts That Haunt Us. These thoughts are these things that are kind of weighing us down and inhibiting us from I guess living to our full potential. So I just want to give him credit where credit's due. So he was the one that came up with that, and we all really vibed with it. And I think that is the perfect title as the summation of these songs. Yeah,
it sounds like it for sure, man. I like it. I can't wait till to hear the rest of them. Now, with this this EP being in progress, any talk of any like tours and support for that?
So 2024, we toured quite a bit just around Maryland. Last year we were able to get to Delaware. We got up to Pennsylvania. We actually have like a pretty little a cool squad that we built in Scranton. They have like a pretty cool, group up there that all supports heavy music. So we're happy to have dived into that a bit. And I know that Mikey, we talked yesterday about, getting on a few weekenders and supporting bands that are bigger in other areas, so that way we can kind of get our name out there in places like New York, Ohio, Virginia, and tap into these markets. But as of right now, we only have 2 shows on the calendar because we've been doing so much as far as writing, recording, and kind of elevating our social media presence, which is a lot of work, man. I didn't realize. Yeah, I mean, in this day and age, bands are all DIY. We are largely our videographers, content creators, photographers. While we're writing and recording, we're all working full-time jobs, and then trying to put out 2 reels a day on Facebook while, tracking our analytics, making sure people are actually listening to the music, contacting artists to create things like album artwork and stuff. It is a lot of work. So sometimes stuff gets lost in the mix, and we haven't taken as much time to really schedule shows, which we should be, especially with all the new music coming out. Our next show, I know you're a wrestling fan too from previous interviews. We're actually playing a wrestling festival in North Baltimore. It's Voltage Wrestling is the group that's going to be at that event. And we should be going on midday. So I guess when the crowd is the fullest. That's being put on by a good buddy of ours, Griff. He was in a band called Redacted, which actually just yesterday or the day before hung it up, which is very sad to see because those are some talented guys. But he's now the bassist of a band called The Edge of Desolation. And those guys are awesome, super heavy. They're more deathcore oriented, but he's the gentleman putting that together. So we'll be performing at that. It's called Beef, Beer, and Beatdowns. It's going to be like barbecue and pit beef. Yeah. It's at a brewery. It's at Peabody Heights Brewery in North Baltimore. So it's going to be, all the beer that, not me or you, but others may want to drink. And then the beatdowns element will be the Voltage Wrestling. So while they're slamming each other over there in between events, then that's when the bands hop on stage and get everybody amped up for the next event. So that'll be on July 11th. Peabody Heights Brewing in North Baltimore. And then after that, speaking of Mikey Hayes and Fight From Within, I'm pretty sure that it's okay, that it's going to be announced on Friday. But we will be performing with them at some point in August. I'll leave it, that open-ended, but we are supposed to hop on a show with those guys in August. That'll be in Catonsville, Maryland, sometime early August.
Nice. Well, yeah, Mikey's been building a following up here in Cleveland as well with some people. So hopefully he'll throw you guys on and you guys can make the trip. I know gas prices suck right now, but be great to have you guys up here at some point.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I like that. And then, man, that takes me back to my promoter days. I tried doing like a wrestling and hardcore event before, and it went pretty well, but it's like, man, it was a lot of work. I don't miss a lot of that. And then like the whole social media thing, dude, I'm a 53-year-old man. I'm retired Navy. I'm a dad. This is all new to me, trying to just like get a following for this podcast and everything. This is kind of like a happy hobby and therapy for my mental health. But if I want to keep getting the good interviews, I gotta produce numbers, man. And that's how it goes. So,
dude, everything looks great. Your whole setup looks very professional, I gotta say. But real quick, I gotta ask, what the hell is a boondoggle?
Well, it goes back to it's an homage to an old senior chief of mine that was I was on my last deployment with. I was supposed to be like because of my security clearances and my job, so to speak, I was supposed to be more of an admin guy, and I hated being stuck down in the office. So whenever there's an opportunity for me to like jump on like a escort mission or something that got me out of the office and, driving somewhere, just, across the wire or whatever, I was getting involved with it. And it got to the point where my senior chief was just like, he didn't even try to keep me in the office anymore. He knew I was going to get out. So he was just like, what's today's boondoggle, Bailey? So I took that and made that my own as an homage to him. But then after like I took that and started using it, I looked up the definition, and it's basically like, you know, it's not so flattering to what I'm trying to do, but oh well, we'll make it positive. You know, whatever energy you put into words, you know, whatever energy you put into words is the energy you'll get out. So I'm gonna, you know, like use that for good. So it's basically like I think like a plan that's destined to fail, but you know, hey, this one's I'm gonna keep going at it, and you know, this is going to be episode 454. So I guess we're doing something all right, you know?
That's awesome. That's awesome, Bill. Yeah. And I think that the name, you know, even if people don't know that definition that you just told me, I think that it's something that's it's a bit of like an earworm. Like people are going to hear that, and you know, how can you forget Boondoggle? Like when I you know got the email for the opportunity, I was able to like, you know, do something else and then later remember the name to look it up, because you know, how can you read that and forget very easily the term Boondoggle? So no, I'm a big fan.
Nice. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I can tell you did your homework. Probably did more homework on me than I did, you know, but it
like to be prepared.
Yeah. No, I like it. And then you know, before we get ready to wrap up, I want to ask you a couple questions that I normally ask my guests that I have on. We talked about, like, I mean, your dad getting you into Sabbath and Zeppelin as a kid, and you kind of getting into your own music along the way, leading you to where you're at today. But who would you say are the top 3 artists you're listening to today?
Man, that's tough. My music, like my playlists are so all over the place, man. Like, you know, my girlfriend, she's a fantastic vocalist, by the way. She's an actual singer. She doesn't just yell at people like I do, but she actually went to school for it. She's gotten me into things like, you know, we go a lot to the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. We love classical music. That was actually one of my top genres last year on Spotify, if you can believe it. So we go out and we listen to a lot of classical music. She's into theater. We've gone up to Broadway since we've been together probably like 4 or 5 times to see different productions. So like my playlist is all over the map. I love jam bands. I like jazz. We have a great jazz club down the street from us in Harbor East here in Baltimore. So I listen to things all over the map. One of my favorite albums that came out recently is by a band called High Fade. They're a Scottish like funk band. That album, I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but the new High Fade album is awesome. It's fast-paced, aggressive punk. And this new album, as opposed to their older stuff, it has a really hard like rock edge where they even start like screaming in parts, which totally took me by surprise compared to their, you know, previous releases. I'm highly anticipating more music by one of my favorite bands, you know, from like the Gent era, which is After the Burial. You know, those guys have been put through the ringer. When Justin passed away, that was a huge blow to the metal scene. You know, he was a great guitarist, great guy, and they've continued, man. Like they released Evergreen, which is the biggest album of their career. It's been a few years now. But they're still riding the success of that album, and they were able to do that without him. And I just love those guys. Every time they come through, I always buy some merch from them because I want to see them, you know, continue to make great music. Their stuff is heavy, it's groovy, and I love the subject matter of the lyrics. Other than that, man, I told you I was a big fan of Lamb of God. That new Lamb of God album, Into Oblivion, dude, that album is so sick. When we just saw them a few months back, it was at the MGM Casino here in Maryland, right by DC. And, you know, we hung out so long talking to some old friends of ours that Art Cruz, their current drummer, he waltzes right up to us and he starts talking to us. We ended up talking to Art Cruz for about an hour. And he's talking to us about the inspiration behind some of these songs. And in, what is it, St. Catherine's Wheel, I believe the song is, where they do the break it and you hear like the sound of something snapping. That was actually his idea. I think he's like breaking a drumstick to try to add like something unique to that breakdown. Like those guys have been at it for so long. And obviously, unfortunately, Chris Adler's no longer with them, but Art, I feel like, was a great addition. He gets a lot of negativity because he's not Chris, who was one of the best drummers of that era. Like Chris Adler and Joey Jordison of Slipknot, people love them. They're still two of my favorite drummers that ever played, behind a kit. And it's sad that Joey passed, and you don't hear as much from Chris anymore since he's not with Lamb of God. But yeah, man, that new Lamb of God album is absolutely fantastic. I think it was a heavy comeback for them. So there's 3 albums. After the Burial, they just had 2 singles come out, but anticipating that album. But 3 bands that are all pretty different, but they've been in constant rotation on my recent playlists.
Nice. Yeah, I'm pretty much all over the map myself with what I listen to as well. Like yesterday, I was listening to Duran Duran at the gym. Today, I was listening to some of you guys to get ready for the interview here. And then, I just before, like I said, I jumped off the meeting and I was getting ready to jump on this, and I was listening to Peebo Bryson because I found out that he just passed away. So I was like, oh shit, yeah. Unfortunately, he just passed away. So that's why I started jamming some of his songs, because I used to make some mixtapes back in the day when I was trying to impress the ladies with some of his stuff, that's his stuff. At the end of every like Disney movie, it was always some female vocalist and Peebo Bryson doing like an R&B version of whatever Disney song was the big hit off that film. Yeah, exactly. It's like he grew up with me and my daughters, Yep, that's right, man. I didn't know that. So, damn, you just dropped kind of a bomb on me. I'm gonna have to go tell my girl once we hop off here. That's sad, man. But yeah, that's an eclectic, mix of music to having been listened to. And thank you for throwing us on there and giving us the listens. We really appreciate it. Yeah, no problem, man. And then who are 3 people who've inspired you and you can credit for making you the person you are today? Oh man, I mean, with music, it's definitely, I mentioned it earlier, and it's a bit of a cop out, but absolutely my parents. I mean, my dad was the one who inspired me. Man, we would listen to like Lynyrd Skynyrd. That's one of his favorite bands. I've traveled all over and seen Skynyrd with him playing on like air guitar on broomsticks in the basement of the house that I grew up in, playing Freebird, and just inspiring me to pick up a real instrument and learn something like that. And, he had them on VHS tapes. We would watch them live, and to just see a crowd come alive when those guys would come on stage, I knew that someday that's something that I wanted to do. And so he was the one who initially got me inspired to play music. He took me to my first show. My first concert was 2003. It was Heart and Nancy Wilson. They were plugging their new album, Jupiter's Darling, an album they made that nobody remembers, but I certainly do. And just seeing them up on stage, man, they covered a few Zeppelin tunes. Just seeing them play Barracuda live, Nancy Wilson in the intro of Crazy on You. Like, I knew that I wanted to do that. But at that point, I had never had a guitar in my hands. So fast forward to 2006, I'm getting cut from the football team, which we heard at the beginning of the JV football year that the team was in dire need of players and they weren't going to cut anybody. And then here I am getting cut after 2 weeks of tryouts or whatever. And I'm all ho-hum. And who comes to the rescue but my mother? She says, I'm not just going to let you sit around. You're going to find something to do. I know that you've always wanted to learn guitar. And I said, well, yeah. And she took me to Guitar Center. She bought me my first guitar, which I still have to this day. It's Epiphone SG. I love that guitar. I just got it set up not long ago by my good friend Sydney, who's a guitar tech. And she got me a little Marshall combo amp. And man, I just started learning music. I started learning some Sabbath, some Zeppelin, like Rage Against the Machine, bands that inspired me from like the 90s and 2000s and stuff like that. So, I mean, they were the ones that got me into music. And then, I don't know, man. It's strange to say, but
my grandfather, he was United States Marine Corps. My family was all Marine Corps, which is a department of the Navy, right? So we're good on that. They'll never tell you that, but yeah, man. It's funny to say him because he passed before I was born, and I never even got to meet him. But I'm named after him. My middle name is Carmine. His name was Carmine Cirillo, and just the stories of him being a good person, him having the tenacity to lock onto something and to stick with it despite all the things that may stand in between him and that end goal. And that's something that my family, my mother told me about him, and I never got to meet the guy, but all of the stories surrounding him and his personality, I just wanted to be worthy of his namesake. So I hope I'm making him proud. And it's something that drives me to be a better person in life and to be a better musician. So I hope I'm making him proud up there.
Nice. Yeah, I'd say you are, man. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you, brother.
Now, you mentioned, you're going to be playing this wrestling extravaganza. Are you a fan by chance?
So I never got super into it. When I was into wrestling, like WWF was still a thing. I remember having the video games and going over to my buddy Matt's when we were kids for WrestleMania. So I wasn't like a weekly watcher, but I do remember watching WrestleMania as a kid. And I had WWF Warzone, and my buddies would come over for sleepovers, and we'd pick like our one guy, Stone Cold, Mankind, whoever you were going to be that night, and you had to lock in with that character. And we would host tournaments like round robin and see who could beat who, and then we'd have a champion, and then we'd do it all over again to see who could beat who again. So that's about my entire involvement. I didn't get into it to like a heavy degree, but I still love it watching guys slam each other, and I love the the theatrical element behind it, and I think that it goes hand in hand with what we're doing up there on stage.
Yeah, for sure. So who was your guy that you kept picking?
Man, back then, I'm trying to think. I feel like I was Bret Hart a lot back in that day. Yep.
Nice.
The Hitman.
And then we mentioned your grandfather, but any message you have for our military members that are currently serving overseas?
Absolutely. Thank you for your sacrifice. I mean, a lot of my family members made that sacrifice. I never, made that leap of faith. And just from having my family that has done it, I know a little bit about what you give up to keep us safe and to preserve freedom in this country. We just had Veterans Day recently, and honoring my grandfather, my uncles, and what they had to give up to have America, in the position that we're in now. And we're about to celebrate its 250th anniversary, and I feel like people have kind of lost the sense of patriotism. And I will always be proud to be the grandson of a Marine, and what you do for this country, it does not go unnoticed, and we cannot thank you all enough.
Awesome. Nick, man, it's been great talking with you, dude. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate it. Now, for any fans out there new hearing about you guys and want to check you out and support you, where would you send them?
So we're on all streaming platforms. We are an Arson Theory artist now, and they get us on platforms that I've never even heard of, but the main ones, obviously Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. We are on YouTube. You checked out our Mirage music video. I feel like that is our most professional piece of digital media to date. That was done by the very talented Ian Bell. He's the one who does all of our video stuff. We'll have another music video for that single that I mentioned. That will be out soon. So that's on YouTube. Our lyric video that you mentioned earlier is also on YouTube. We're on Facebook, Omen Skye. And if you've never seen it written out, it's OMEN. We do the 2 forward slashes that seem to be very popular in heavy music nowadays. And then just for the sake of having balance between the letters. Skye is spelled Skye. So you can find us on Facebook at Omen Skye, and Instagram, I believe we're at Omen Skye Band. We're also on TikTok, which, like you were saying, as somebody who's just wrapping their mind around all this social media stuff that, you know, we have to deal with nowadays, I'm learning how to use TikTok, and I am, you know, I feel so old trying to figure it out, but we're on there and we're going to have a lot more content up soon. Something I've realized is people really like raw video footage on TikTok, whereas Instagram and Facebook is more the professional polished videos. TikTok is really just like people with their phones out taking videos of us up there on stage. We have a few that are like big walls of death. So we're going to put some fun multimedia stuff on TikTok. But yeah, Omen Skye, OMEN, 2 of those / SKYE, and you can find us on all social media platforms.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thanks again, man. It was great talking with you, and look forward to seeing what's ahead with you guys, especially with Mikey working with you. Yeah,
man. And if he throws us on a show and we head out that way, I'll be sure to drop you a line so we can actually meet face to face. I would love that.
Sounds good, my friend. All right, you take care.
All right, brother. You do the same. Thanks so much for having me.
Listen up! Hold on to your seats. Grab your girls, grab your beers.
Hey everybody, this is Charlie from Anthrax, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now here's your host.
I am Monty Heath, so one Heath, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Hey, what's up? It's John from Skillet, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle on Domain Cleveland Radio.
Hey!